Welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I'm talking with Analeigh Sbrana about her debut romantasy novel, Lore of the Wilds. Thank you for joining me, Analeigh.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
I wanted to say I think your name is one of the prettiest names, by the way, Analeigh.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have my mom to thank for that, so she chose it.
Um, okay, so what is Lore of the Wilds about?
So, that question is the one most dreaded by all authors. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, Lore of the Wilds is a fantasy. It is about a human woman who seeks magic of her own. She lives in a world where humans are the outliers here. They are they're the rulers. They're the top of the food chain, basically. And humans, of course, cannot do magic. They are forbidden to even really talk about it. Um, and so she is desperate to find her own, and she goes looking for it.
I love the very beginning of this book a lot because of the way the humans are introduced, kind of. Because it's weird, right? They're not of the place that they're from, right?
Right.
So they've been snatched effectively.
The humans are kind of like, not only are they the outlier, but like they're not even from there. And so they're just completely other, you know? And
Yeah.
so yeah.
And then there's quite a bit of discussion about like how we ended up here, how we're gonna leave, and it's always like them looking at the stars and not doing much.
Well, to be fair, they don't have very many resources.
Yes. And then Lore, the main character's like, but we could do something.
Yeah. Laura's kind of like look, if we can't leave here, like if we don't even know where we're from, our history has been stolen from us. We don't know where we're from. So at least we can try to make this life better, you know,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So at the very beginning of the book, she is convinced to go live with the Fae. Um, and when she gets there, she has to organize a library.
Yes,
So,
an enchanted library,
so
a
talk a
cursed
little bit.
library.
Yeah. Uh, Tell me a little bit about this library.
Well, I will say that the library is what started this entire book. Um, I was daydreaming, as writers do. And I pictured this human woman, didn't know her name, didn't know who she was, walking into a library that hadn't been, like, nobody had walked into it for 1,000 years. And she was looking for something, she was seeking something. And I was like, what is up with this library? Like, why has nobody been in it in 1,000 years? Like, what a waste of books. There's got to be a reason. Oh, it's cursed, you
Mhm.
know? And so, but for some reason, a human can breach the doors, whereas if any other creature were to enter it, they would be just basically obliterated on the spot, like poof, or something. It would probably be awful. Um, and so that was the beginning of this entire book, was Lore walking into the library. I didn't know her name yet. And so the library is, it's my favorite. It's my favorite place in the book. Well, that and the wildwood. I love the woods as well. But I will say that the library is, I think it's a good time. I think that basically anyone I talk to who've read the book all they tell me is like, we wanted more, we needed more, I wanted more library. Um, and so I'm like, okay, noted, noted, noted for next time.
So it is the thing that sucked me in too, though, because I'm like, well, clearly I love to read. And so if I'm stuck in a library, just tragically stuck there, this could
Right?
be the worst thing ever.
I know. I mean, you can't tell because my shelves are empty. I just moved from Delaware to California. So we just now got my new shelves up. These are new. I just got them. I went from white to a walnut
Oh.
color. I will say color because it's not real like walnut wood. Um, but and so I'm really excited about that. But I don't have any of my books up yet. But I am also a avid reader, a book collector as well. And so I think a lot of my like it, a lot of like Laura's internal monologue and like or dialogue and her love for books, like that is also like my love for books, and it's really kind of an ode. It's kind of like a love letter to like every one of us who love to read, you know?
I feel it though. And so in the beginning, before Laura's taken to Aletheria, she actually transcribes books that come into the village for other villagers to read, which I thought was the coolest thing, right? So,
Yeah, it kind of gives her that little edge because the humans have their own language and the Aletherians have theirs. And so a lot of the humans, like they don't necessarily, like, maybe they can speak Aletherian, but they can't necessarily write it or read it. You know what I mean? And so she is able to read Aletherian and write it and transcribe it and everything. So that kind of gives her her edge, and it's one of the reasons why she goes to the library.
it just it was like so beautiful too, because she the Fae come into her shop and they're like, "Oh, well, you have books." Psh. And she's like, "Yep." And they were so snotty.
I know, for real. They are very haughty, very
Um,
haughty.
yes. So was this book always supposed to be a little romantasy to it?
The thing is that I have never written anything without romance. I don't think ever. Like not even in middle school. Even in like middle school, me writing my epic fantasies that I was writing down in my journals, they all had like a love story throughout. Like even though they were very sweet and all they would do is hold hands. Um, but so I am a romance reader and a romance writer, and I don't know how I can write anything without it. The only problem is that my characters tend to just do whatever they want. Even if I'm trying to wrangle them in to do what I want, and I know this probably sounds wild if you're not a writer, because you're probably like, well, you're the one sitting there telling the story. But sometimes your characters just don't do what there is. Like I will say, there is one character who I wrote into this book who was supposed to be a best friend, a confidant, like a he was supposed to kind of be like maybe her second in command. Like in my head, he was gonna be like, at first they weren't gonna like each other, but then they were gonna like, something was gonna happen and they were gonna trust each other and it was gonna be amazing. And then my character, maybe possibly kind of falls for him a little bit. And I'm like, well, you weren't supposed to do this. This was supposed to just be kind of like, kind of like that, hey, excuse me. So my characters just they be doing whatever they want. It's true.
They do kind of walk all over writers, is what I've heard from many of these interviews. Is like they're gonna do what they're gonna do, you know?
Yeah. And I honestly think that like in a way, sometimes those are like the best books to read. You know what I mean? Because if the author is surprised, the reader's going to be surprised too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though we can go back through and add foreshadowing and stuff like that later, but like sometimes, like you know what I mean. I think that those like are always exciting. You know, sometimes I feel like sometimes you can read a book and it's kind of okay. This is a formula, and they're just filling everything out exactly how they know it and how their other books are and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I think that sometimes, sometimes that happens. And so it's always exciting whenever you're like, oh my gosh, wait, what? You know?
It is pretty sweet too. The relationship between Laura and Asher. Um, and I don't know, the way he's like takes her to the market and is like, this is the right like cream for your hair to make sure it doesn't frizz and is tameable. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
That's love right there. Like, because
Yes.
anytime he's gonna, like, he was pretty much like, let me put you onto this game because look, don't buy this cream. Like, let me tell you, it's not what you need. It's not what you want. You're gonna have to need, you need to get this. And so, Laura is very thankful because, she's going through it with her hair. Poor thing.
Yeah, yeah. Turns out hair is difficult to manage in a fantasy world.
Right, exactly. She's like, where is my aunt? I need her to braid my hair, please. Like, I can't.
When
So,
she was leaving the village and her aunt was holding the baby, I was
oh,
like
Milo.
crying.
Oh, were you?
Can't do that to me.
Oh my God, I know. That scene was, and he's so sweet, and he was like reaching for her, and I was just like, yeah, she loves those little kiddos for sure. And that was like, I know I was writing it, and I was like, you know what I mean?
She just needs to say goodbye.
I know they were so mean,
Yeah.
those guards.
So this kind of leads into the Fae in your book. So they are a tiered society, right? Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about who's on top and who's not?
So the Fae within themselves, they kind of have some class issues, kind of. They're like if you have wings, then you're a higher tier. And they're kind of clans as well, because they are like the dark fae kind of have like some animalistic like features. So, like Asher, he has the deer antlers. So he's from the deer clan. And then there's the royalty, like, and there's like a special guard and they're all winged and they have like kind of like eagle wings and stuff like that. And so if you're like winged, you're probably royalty. You're probably super wealthy. You probably have generational wealth that goes back forever and ever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And then there's like and then it's kind of like to like a lot of the times like a predator. If you are like, you kind of have like say tiger features or something, like you might be higher up. But then like you got, like um if you have like little bunny ears or something, then you might not be, so there's kind of it's like it's definitely like kind of it definitely changes where like what type of job you can have, what kind of position you'll have and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and Lore learns most of this from Asher and the interactions that they have going to and from the library usually. Um,
hmm, yes.
which is funny because he's talking to the little boys who are supposed to watch her when she's in the library. And I just love the interactions between the three of them, the boys and Asher. So,
I love them. I love Tarun and Lib. They're so cute. They're so cute.
Lordy. I'm trying to stay away from any big plot points. So, mostly we're just going to talk about how the book is set up because
Okay.
it's not out yet and I
Right, we
don't
don't
want
want
to
to spoil because
spoil.
it's not out yet.
Ugh.
It's out so soon, 2 days.
I know
I
it's right there. So,
I know, it's so crazy. It's just the wildest feeling ever.
um, one of the things that I find really interesting is the humans aren't supposed to like have magic, but Lore, when she enters the library, she encounters it, right? So she might not be performing magic, but it is definitely coming towards her, it feels like. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
and especially as a human, she's been sheltered from magic because the Fae don't usually use it. They don't need to. They have brute strength. They're so much stronger and faster than humans, you know? And so if they're going into Duskmere, which is Lore's town, village, they're going into Duskmere, they don't necessarily have to use magic. So she's unfamiliar with it. She doesn't quite know a lot about it. She doesn't know, you know, what they can do, what are their limits, you know, what's normal for them, for a society that has magic, that's born with magic, it's inherent to them. So she's navigating that the entire time as well. Completely just she just always like she's just always like a sponge. She's just always learning and soaking things up, you know.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, she goes into the library, she does encounter magic because it is an enchanted library. There are spells in every facet of it, you know, from the point where a lot of the books, you know, it's been 1,000 years since anyone's entered the library, but the books aren't crumbling to pieces. They
Yeah.
haven't been eaten, chewed by mice, you know. And so, you know, because they have spells put on them and stuff like that. And some of the candles, they just light themselves and stuff. You know what I mean? Like you know, it's kind of like if you walk into a room and the lights are motion censored, you know, it's kind of how those candles are. You know what I mean? And Laura's like, what? Because she's used to having to, like, you know, barely use candles because they don't have resources. You know, their candles are, you know, I don't really get into it, but, you know, they're really poor. So their candles are probably smelly and made from like not the best things. And, you know what I mean? And you have to, like, you know, you have to ration them out and stuff like that. Or they can use like precious oil, you know, which is expensive and hard to get and hard to make. So,
Yeah. So the town Duskmere only gets like a traveler every once in a while, right? It's not a regular
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And they pretty much just kind of use the barter system. They do
Yeah.
have to pay taxes. So like almost all of their resources, and if it's not the resources, then it's their money that, you know, their coin that's going to Aletheria and the king. So
Yeah. It's just that it's really interesting to see how they survived, like alone, kind of cut off. Um, and it makes me so sad that they're so cut off because the
yeah,
village
they
is
are. They're
so small, right?
mhm. Yeah, it's pretty small. It's pretty you know, like the I think in the first or second chapter, the one of the Fae who comes into the library, she's like, my shoes are ruined from the muddy streets, and Laura's thinking like, well, if we didn't have to give you guys all of our money, maybe we could, you know, put brick down, like, you know,
She
make her a bunch of
is
shoes.
her internal sass is where it's at, really. This is the internal voice I also have, and I am usually asked, did you say that with your outside voice or your inside voice?
Like,
Definitely.
okay, mask your face, mask your face. Yeah, because she's like not trying to, you know, die, but she does her internal monologue. She's like, if only I could say this to them, but I
The
can't, but I want to.
I know it, it's just right there, and then but the Fae have a special kind of weapon that they use against the villagers so they don't try and escape. And Lore tried
Hmm.
to leave once and she got cut with one. And now that
Yeah.
is like a permanent pain, right?
Yeah, so it's so she did so this happens, this takes place before the book, but you know, you kind of I think there was like a flashback or something. But she did. Laura has always like been unhappy with their lot in life. And so she did. She tried to run away. And one of the sentries, they cut her with a knife. And you find out that they had this like not quite a poison, but something on it to make sure that it would scar and it would take a really long time to heal. Because, you know, they're like we want you to remember that you broke the rules, and now you're always going to have this, So so she does. She has that scarf. Like sometimes it kind of burns. And it could just be burning because it's her memory coming back or something. I mean, but yeah, the sentries, the guards who guard Duskmere and keep them in are the worst.
They are. I thought she was gonna beat up Asher when she realized he was a guard. I was like, oh
If
God.
she could have, she would have. If she could have, she would have, for sure.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, she's a human.
Yeah.
So, and
So
he's gay.
yeah, and like she's there for a reason. She wants to discover something to set her people free. I get it. She just I could see him hit her like she just hit him in the face, just a little ugh.
Just like casual. Just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so sorry. Oops, I
Whoops.
did not mean to do that. Oh no, again. Oh no. Dang, my fist.
It just gets away from you.
Oops. So sorry. Did I just hit you with this book?
That's the other thing. So she's there for the library to like look in the library to find spells essentially for the king or the people of Etheria. And
Mhm.
the whole time I'm rooting for her to not do it. Don't do it. Um,
Right.
and she's like, oh, well, I have to give them something.
Yeah.
It's just a fun tension when you're reading it to be like, they're gonna do something awful, don't do it.
Oh, I love that. That's fun. I haven't heard that before. So that's cool that's like you were like, don't you dare. Don't whatever they want, don't give it to them.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, I love how she goes through the library and she's just like taking down the books' names and they're like, don't read them. And she's like, I have to kind of read them to know what they're about, though.
Yeah,
Just
like
a
a little
little.
bit. Like if I'm gonna you want me to categorize it, not read it. So she's like, I'm just gonna hide in this stack because they can't come in here. They can't see me.
Hmm.
Oops, I'm reading this book. Oh no, I'm getting so much knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, and sometimes she doesn't, I don't think she realizes she's getting a lot of knowledge. It feels like things creep up.
Yeah, well, I think one thing she's trying to do is because Lore is, she's made to do this task, and she knows that, she's promised, resources for her village, but what she wants to come home with more than anything is knowledge,
Yeah.
for them. So she does eventually, find a journal and start journaling and keeping some of that knowledge, oh, she found this out of these plants that grow near them. You can do these things with these plants, they can be medicine, but we didn't know that. We had no idea,
Yeah.
you know?
And
And
it would
so,
go ahead.
oh yeah, well, I was just gonna say, and so she is trying, she does know that they have been purposely kept ignorant, you know what I mean? And so she is trying to combat that with, trying to, as secretly as she can, collect as much knowledge as she can while she's in this library. So,
So the her tribe is always like trying to get more knowledge and some of these things that she finds out seem so innocuous. Like these plants are medicinal. Like why would that be protected knowledge? It just seems so cruel to,
yeah,
to do that.
right. It is. It's a lot of it seems needlessly cruel.
Yeah.
What would it hurt to have a healer come in one of their own healers come in once a month and do, set bones or, bring medical supplies and, resupply their midwife and stuff. What would hurt, but they don't. So,
It's always like this most books that have this tyrannical like side, I'm just like, why though? And then I'm like, well, okay, let's look back in history. I can see where you're pulling this from. Never mind. So,
well, I will say that Lore of the Wilds is a duology.
yes.
And so you do end the first book with a lot of questions,
And
and they will
emotions.
they will be answered in book two.
That's good that
So,
it's only a duology. I was afraid of a trilogy and having to wait even longer.
oh, isn't it painful when you read,
Yes.
especially whenever you read a book before it's even out? You're like,
Yeah.
I bought this advanced reader's copy. I'm so excited. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I not only have to wait for the first book to come out, but now the second and maybe the third and maybe the fourth. No, it is a planned duology. So you've only got the one more book to wait for. So, I actually just sent my manuscript to my editor. So
Ooh, that's
for book two,
exciting.
it is exciting. Very exciting.
Um, so are you working on anything else after this?
I have about 50 million books that I want to write. I have a whole list of ideas. I have quite a few partially written manuscripts. And so I will say I am very excited to have a chance to work on that. I have been focused on lore for really 2 years. Really, I haven't let myself like really work on a lot. Like I always participate in NaNoWriMo. Do you know that?
Yeah.
National November Writing Month.
Yep.
And so what I normally do is if I'm working on a manuscript, um, I take a break from that, and all November I'll work on something new. Um, and it's really like a palate cleanser for me. I just pants my way through it. I just like write whatever comes to mind. I'm just trying to get as many words as I can. I'm just telling myself a story. I'm making up new characters as they come. They have like the most wild names. I'm just picking names off of like whatever I see around me, stuff like that. And I have but this past NaNoWriMo, like I wasn't able to do that. I worked on more too. Trying to get as many words as I can for all of November. And it really helped. I ended up getting the 50,000, um,
Dang.
which I've never won. I've never won before. I've never reached 50,000 before. So it was really, really cool.
I've
Um,
never gotten past like week two because stuff always gets in the way, and I'm like, dang it.
well, November, you have like, if you're American, you have Thanksgiving and you're either leaving or you have family coming or, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
like, and there's actually so much that happens in November, and then I have a kid and they're home all week, and for a week. And, it's like, it's so November. I'm actually like, who picked this? Why? Please tell me. Couldn't we have done a month where there's not a huge anyway? But
I'm with you. I wish we could switch it to a different month.
right. I'm seriously like, let's start a petition. Because I
All right,
love,
I'll
I
sign.
love participating. I love how the writer community comes together. It
Yes.
is so fun. Everyone's updating you on their word counts and their, you know, Pinterest boards and all kinds of fun things, and you get to see so much about people's work in progress and stuff. And so, but to answer your question, yes, I have more things coming.
Good.
Um, and they're probably pretty much like I said, everything I write. I only write high fantasy. I one time tried to write a contemporary romance, and I didn't get past chapter three. I actually outlined the entire thing, and I
Yeah.
had Pinterest boards of characters and stuff like that, backstories, everything. And I was like, no, why are they pulling out a cell phone? I don't
Yeah.
like it. Why is there a cell phone? No. I'm like, I need everyone's cell phones to break. And then they have to write letters. And I'm like, and now let's light this candle. Oh no, I'm in high fantasy again.
I've definitely read a lot of books where like somehow the power just goes out permanently and I'm like, "Oh, perfect."
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, wait, are we in a dystopian right now?
Ding, ding, ding.
Maybe that will be my solution. I'll write a dystopian romance.
Yeah, I don't know. I still like I like high fantasy a lot.
Me
I didn't
too.
used to. I was
Really?
strictly sci-fi and then I read
Oh,
um like Rachel Gillig wrote a book, One Dark Window, and then I got really, really into
I
Kimberly
have
Lemming.
that
Oh,
so high up on my TBR. I
oh
bought
yeah.
it on Kindle and I have the paperback, and it's literally just when can I read it? That's all
Yeah.
it is. It's just like I just like I now that all of this is going on in my books now, my manuscript for book two is now with my editor. I'm finally gonna have time to read again. And so it's I'm hoping to read it maybe next month.
I would say Lore of the Wilds and One Dark Window could be like partnered books, in my opinion, because they're very
Oh, that
like,
seems like very high praise because I've heard
yeah,
that One Dark Window is fantastic.
it's very
So
good, but
thank
so
you.
is yours. Your language is so beautiful, and I was like, oh my gosh, pulled in immediately.
Ooh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That's very nice to hear. Especially with 2 days to release. I'm like my anxiety is very high.
Don't listen to any naysayers. Ignore them. Just ignore them.
I do. I will say that I'm very good at, because I was originally a book reviewer, a bookstagrammer.
Yeah.
And so, reviews are for the readers. They are not for the writers. I do not go seeking them out, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
at all. Um, every once in a while I've been tagged in a negative review and I'm like, you hurt my feelings on purpose, but why? So I just,
Yeah.
untag myself very quietly.
I thought it
Um,
was the
I
polite
don't.
thing to do not to tag the author in
Yeah,
negative
because well, the
reviews.
thing is, because reviews. I think that you absolutely should. Everyone should tell their honest reviews.
Yeah.
Especially because if you're reviewing a book, honestly, your negative review could be a positive for somebody else. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And or you could save someone money. You could save them from reading a book that they're not going to like. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because maybe you have completely similar styles. You know what I mean? Or whatever preferences, I should say. Um, so you should be telling other readers and consumers, about the book. But I do think that reviews are not for authors. Especially because we do seek out critique. We have
Yeah.
editors and we have
Yep.
proofreaders and we have beta readers. And those are the times that we want feedback. We're like, please tell me everything. Were you confused? Was there a plot hole? Did this not make sense? You know what I mean? Like, tell
Yeah.
me exactly what you didn't like. Did you hate this part? Do you hate this character? Like, I need you to love this character. Um, so there are times where we really want critique. And usually it's not after the book's already published.
Yeah.
And there's
But
nothing we can do
also,
about it.
I get this impression that people don't understand not every book is written for you. Like
Yeah,
there is a general audience in mind when you're writing a romantasy book, right? Like it's
right.
not the dude at Costco that is being a dick, you know?
Yeah. I actually had someone comment on my TikTok. I think it was yesterday. They were like, I was just about to pre-order this, but I saw it was a romantasy, not for me. So I'm gonna tell my sister about it. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
thank you. That's
yeah,
awesome. Like, you know what you like. You don't like romantasy, you're not gonna enjoy it. Don't
yeah.
waste your money. But thank you for telling your sister who likes romantasy. Like, I love that comment. You know what I mean? I thought it was so nice. Like, because I get it. There are some um I pretty much like every fantasy. I like all fantasy. I love dense fantasy. I love heavy fantasy. I love urban fantasy. I love, my favorite is high fantasy. That's my
Mm.
favorite. I want there to be, I just like taverns and inns and
Yes.
like fireside conversations. Like, I love it
All
so.
right. Just write me a romantasy, like cozy one.
Yes, I know, because a lot of people have been saying, "Oh, Lord of the Wilds is so cozy," and I'm like, fun fact, I was originally advertising this as a dark cottage core. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because there are dark thematic elements in this.
Yeah.
So I really don't want people to go into this thinking that they're not gonna want to maybe cry a little, or they might not be a little traumatized. Because there are some very dark themes, especially with classism and segregation and stuff like that. And so, um, this book has dark elements, but someone once said, this very, very lovely reviewer once said, Lore of the Wilds is a cozy romantasy with all of the blood and chaos of a high fantasy. And I was like, yes, thank you. Like, how do I put this on a poster? I love that. Like, there are cozy scenes. It is atmospheric.
Yes.
Um, I'm a cottagecore girly at heart. I love everything cottagecore. And so but but also there are some heavy themes. So I like to think it's a nice balance.
Yes.
Um but yeah. But
It
I got you on
definitely,
that because I would like to write a cozy, less like with way lower stakes, you know?
but it doesn't have to have no stakes. I think people don't always connect that. Like, there can be some stakes, like there could be
Yeah.
danger. It's just not
Yeah.
the main thing.
It is, yeah, it is, because it is, because as somebody who is like constantly reading fantasies where it's like, if you don't do this, the world is going to end.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm so stressed. I'm actually stressed this entire book, and it's my favorite book. You know what I mean? But now that like there are cozy fantasies coming out and it does exist, I'm like, why is this warm hug? Like, why am I being hugged by this book right now? So they both are just two lovely things. I like to think that my book is my middle ground,
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's a very good, it to me it's a very, very good entry point to high fantasy. Like, people can start here and they get the idea of a lot of high fantasy elements because they're in there. And so if
Yeah.
it's like a bridge, if you've never really been into
Well,
it, do this.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I like to think that too. My friend Jordan, she'd never read a high fantasy book in her life, like ever. She reads contemporary books. And she read my book because I wrote it and we're friends. And she was like, I'm a fantasy girly now. Now she's read all of ACOTAR. She's like, she's working her way through so many thicker, bigger fantasies. And she did say, she was like, you were the first high fantasy I ever read. And I will say that I thought it was such a great entry point because I wasn't like bogged down with world building or anything
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is such a nice compliment. I'm really glad to hear that because, um, as and like I said, I used to be a reviewer, and so world building is something that I've always been like, either world building 5 out of 5 or like,
Yeah.
why did I have to sit here and take notes? And you guys did not provide me a glossary, you know. So, so it's something that was very important to me when I was writing this novel was that I didn't want to make it too heavy-handed. I wanted it to, and I wanted the world building to come naturally with as you follow the main
Mhm.
character, as you follow Lore. She's learning, and so are you. You know, so I hope I was able to, succeed.
You did very, very well. So kudos.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Um, So the book is out tomorrow, which is or not tomorrow.
Tuesday,
Geez
February
Louise.
27th.
I don't know why I said September.
Well, you know what? Funny story is whenever I was originally going to indie publish this, it was going to come out in September. Um,
Yeah, it feels like a
and
September
then
read. Yeah.
yeah, it was. I actually had planned it for a fall read. Um, and so I had planned for it to come out in September. And but then my plans were completely derailed because my book was picked up by Harper Voyager before it came out. And so we pushed it back to February because they were like, that's as soon as we can get it out. Traditional
Fair.
publishing is so slow. They will buy a book and it'll be like, okay, it'll come out in 3 years. And you're like, huh? It's done. Wait, it's done though. Like, so they really worked with me to get it out in February. It was amazing. Yeah. They were like, look, this is the earliest we can do, and we're gonna do it and we're gonna stick to it. And I was like, I can do that. Let's do it. Let's do it. February sounds fine.
So I could see it as an early spring read though too, because she's like going on a journey, right? She's starting from somewhere isolated, the winter,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
she's gonna go on a
And it's still
journey.
kind of cold lots of
Yeah.
places, and it's cold in this book.
Yeah.
Um, they do, she is cold. She's like, I need a cloak. But either way, yeah, my publishing journey was absolutely, it was bonkers. But it's been a wild. thrilling ride. It's been thrilling, I can say that. And now it's all, 2 days, and then it'll be out. So
Are you immediately going to go to a bookstore and look for it?
I will be going to about five.
Okay, good.
I'm going to be doing I'm going to be bookstore hopping. I'm very excited. I'm going to go and just show up and be like, hello, I'm here. I'm the author and I have a pen. Can I sign these books, please? So we'll see. I'm very excited. I just moved to the area, so I haven't been to any of these bookstores. I've only been to one so far. And so a lot of these, it's been my first time going to them. It's a good excuse to get out and drive around and have a good time. So that's what I'll be doing.
That sounds like a perfect day.
Yeah, hopefully my book's there.
It'll
Maybe
be
I'll
there.
call in advance.
It'll be there.
Yeah, I hope so.
When you figure out like a local bookstore, I would love to buy a autographed copy. So, yeah.
Yes, that is something I'm so disappointed I wasn't able to set up
Yeah.
because my husband is in the military, so they tell you when to move,
Yeah.
and we were told to move 1 month before the release date of my book. And so I didn't have my author copies yet. I didn't, I didn't have any of that, and I had previously set up a signing
Mhm.
where we were. So it was with one of the local bookstores. We were gonna have a signing, we are gonna have a whole thing, we are gonna have books, and it was so fun, little launch party. But because we just moved to, literally across the country, Delaware to California, I wasn't able to set anything like that up. I wasn't able to find a bookstore or anything. But for book two, I will say I'm really hoping to have an indie bookstore that I can really try to push orders for it because I am a huge, supporter
Yeah.
of indie authors, indie books, indie bookstores. I love it all. And so I am hoping to do that. So hopefully for book two, I'll be able to have a sign thing. Maybe we can even, if you, pay extra, maybe I can even add in the first book too,
Oh,
signed as well
yeah.
and stuff. So we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'm hoping by then I'll be able to have something set up. So it'll be it'll be fun.
Well, that's perfect. I'm so glad that the book is coming out, and it's really a very fun, interesting, sweet read. Um, and there's lots of emotions for me. I got very emotional sometimes. So,
Oh my gosh, that as an author, like we love hearing that. Like here, if you cried, please fill up my cup. Please
ah,
do tears.
yes.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, I love that. I love knowing that something that I wrote, a story that I told could evoke any type of emotion, whether it's, you know, laughter, crying, enjoyment, hate. Like I love it. Like I want you, you know what I mean? Like because it's art. Like we're putting out
yeah.
art, and so the whole point of our art is to make somebody feel, you know what I mean? To
Mhm.
evoke emotion, to you know what I mean? That's the point of being an artist. If you have these feelings and you push them on other people. Here you
Yes.
go.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
Well,
I'm
thank you. Sorry. Were you going to say something?
no, I was just gonna say that I'm really glad that you read and you enjoyed my book, and thank you for wanting to talk about it.
Yeah. I think you're going to get a lot of people who want to chit chat with you about it, and a lot of people who are going to love it. So don't worry.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've already had some very positive um outreach. People have reached out to me and let me know like, this book meant so much to me. I've never seen somebody who looked like me on the cover of a fantasy book and stuff. And so it's been really heartwarming.
Do you have any idea how much I am annoyed by the term pale in fantasy books? That are pale. Oh, good. Just they just never went outside. Good to know. Like it's just nice to see other types of people in books.
It is. It's got to be refreshing because growing up, I read fantasy. I've been reading fantasy since the third grade when I picked up The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Um, and Dorothy falling through a tornado into another world. I was hooked. I devoured everything that was in it. I read The Hobbit next. I read, everything I could. I read Howl's Moving Castle, I think, in fifth grade. Like everything else I could read that took place in a secondary world, I was obsessed with. But I didn't read a fantasy book with a Black main character until I was 26.
What was it?
And it was A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy.
Yeah.
And it was so good. I loved it. And I cried. I cried. No, I also read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was the first. River of Royal Blood was the second, where I think that one where it wasn't race like based.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, I wasn't like scared. I was, gonna have a bad time. You know what I mean? I read Children of Blood and Bone, cried. A River of Royal Blood, cried, just like cried my eyes out reading it. And I was just like, I crave representation. I crave more stories like this. But I'm mixed. I'm Black and I'm Irish and I'm Italian. And so I was like, is there something like that for me? Is there somebody, out there who's maybe has two different cultures and stuff like that. And as a kid, I used to go to sleep to my mom telling me fairy tales from her, that she heard from her Irish grandmother.
Oh,
And so we've always went searching for the fae when I was a child. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest rainforest. I grew up in Washington State. So we lived in the woods.
you did.
And yeah. And so that is, so I was like, I'm writing this story. I have this story to talk. I'm writing it. And I want other people to see themselves too.
Yeah,
So
I think it annoys me more than anything that different viewpoints just aren't pushed as much as like very middle of the road viewpoints. So I loved seeing this, and I loved that the characters were like very, I don't know, not super white. It didn't really matter. That wasn't the defining thing. So I don't know. I loved it. So
so well, thank you for having me, Dakota.
you're very welcome, and thank
It
you
was
so
so
much for
nice to
being
meet
here.
you.
Um, the book is out in 2 days, so go pick it up, reserve it from your local bookstore. I very much
Yes.
recommend it. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.